On July 19th, 1977, the world teacher, the Christ Maitreya, head of the spiritual hierarchy, emerged from his ancient retreat and is now in the modern world. With his disciples, the masters of the wisdom, he will inaugurate the new age of synthesis and brotherhood.
Good morning and welcome to our World Teacher programme on Wellington's Access Radio 106.1 FM, presented by Teresa on behalf of Share International New Zealand. We have two book reviews to share with you today. The first one featured in the March 2013 edition of Share International magazine. Titled Maitreya's Mission is Our Mission, Carmen Font reviews Maitreya's Mission Volume 1 by Benjamin Creme. It begins. Thomas Edison, 1847 to 1931, who gave us the light bulb, once said that, quote, opportunity is missed by most people because it is dressed in overalls and looks like work. Too often we tend to believe that the greatest breakthroughs in human life are in most cases the result of genius and chance. Even though these two factors play a role in every achievement, hard work is always a prerequisite. Working consistently with a focused and sincere intention provides the necessary energy to invite an opportunity. By responding to a window of opportunity, we participate in the creation or the unveiling of an achievement. The bigger the achievement, the more effort it demands. What we interpret as hard work often requires the performance of arduous tasks, the sacrifice of the lesser for the higher, a degree of physical or emotional discomfort, and the avoidance of our line of least resistance. Constructive hard work is never the result of coercion or lack of purpose. Creative work is undertaken with faith in the result, even when we cannot see the prize amidst the fog. Thus, hard work becomes a mission. Maitreya reminds us in his message number 31 that, quote, nothing happens by itself. Man must act and implement his will. Whereas in his messages Maitreya refers to his work and his call for humanity to participate in it, it was not until the publication of Maitreya's Mission Volume 1 that the rationale and the details of his mission were laid out in full panoramic view. The first edition of the book was published in 1986, with two subsequent editions in 1990 and 1993, and it included a compilation of questions and answers published in the magazine Share International up to then. These questions and answers are organised in topics in order to highlight each thematic area of Maitreya's work. This proves to be an invaluable source of inspiration for the reader, who gains a deeper insight into Maitreya's endeavours. It is also a large window that reveals changes in the world and their causes. So much so that the book saw two sequels, Maitreya's Mission Volumes 2 and 3, which illuminate the continuing work in progress and humanity's preparedness with regard to the emergence of Maitreya and the Masters of Wisdom. Maitreya's mission has never been and will not be a solitary one. In every chapter of Volume 1, we are gently reminded and made vividly aware of the fact that the process of his emergence and the changes in our modes of living call for our full cooperation. A case in point is Benjamin Creme's reference to Maitreya's contact with media representatives in January 1986, who, quote, agreed to make an announcement that a man claiming to be the Christ was indeed living in the Asian community of London. Under pressure from high religious and government officials, however, this statement was withheld. Given this rejection, by karmic law, Maitreya became engaged in a much longer process of emergence, which did not involve the media at all. By creating miracles of all kinds, by appearing to large sections of humanity in various guises, a knowledge of his presence was slowly built up and spread around the world. Thus, without infringing humanity's free will, Maitreya kept the reality of his presence before all those who could believe in it. Even today, in his appearances on television in the USA, Mexico and Brazil, he always appears incognito, so that the viewers can agree or not agree with his ideas, without simply accepting his words to be those of the Christ or world teacher. The late 1980s and early 1990s were momentous times for humanity. Whereas the main political and economic developments of those years are given special focus in Maitreya's Mission Volume 2, for example, the end of apartheid in South Africa, the breakdown of the Soviet Union, the stock market crash beginning in Japan, Volume 1 is concerned with the esoteric essentials of Maitreya's emergence and his teachings for the New Age. In the introduction to the book, Benjamin Creme tells us about a new mode of communication by Maitreya. Through one of his close associates, Maitreya gave teachings and forecasts of world events, which one by one are coming to pass, page 10, thus providing a constant influx of information of a political, social, and spiritual nature. Before we can fully understand the dynamics of world change in the outer physical plane, we need a better grasp of elementary esoteric rules. In this sense, Volume 1 is the perfect sequel to Benjamin Creme's first book, The Reappearance of the Christ and the Masters of Wisdom, and an invitation to further reading the successive volumes of Maitreya's Mission. The foundations of the externalization of the Masters of Wisdom, as well as Maitreya's basic teachings, are the concern of the first 3 chapters of the book. Even though it is almost 20 years since the publication of Volume 1's 3rd edition, it is always refreshing and informative. For instance, to dwell on the Christ's role as agent of divine intervention, quote from page 73, the Christ's presence is the guarantee that the inner decision necessary for peace, that is, sharing, has already been taken by humanity, whether it knows it or not. This is a most reassuring statement, and one which highlights the significance of the covenant between Maitreya and humanity. After 2 decades of changes in the political, economic and social fields, events that Share International has unfailingly reported, readers can grasp the wide-ranging implications of these words. For those who have already pored over Maitreya's Mission Volume 1, revisiting its pages gives a sense of living history. For newcomers, it helps them to understand the origins and background of Maitreya's emergence. Far from being outdated, Volume 1 can thus be read from 2 perspectives, as a review and reminder of the esoteric laws governing Maitreya's emergence, and as a primary source for newcomers who want to delve into the details of the context of this emergence. In both cases, Volume 1 is imbued with such strength and clarity of purpose that it enables the reader to appreciate the profound significance of Maitreya's story and history. There are many such moments of revelation, whether they are completely new to us or a revisit from a former reading. Chapters 4 to 7, which are devoted to the esoteric rules of life and deal with the 7 rays, the concept of initiation, evolution and reincarnation, tackle the intricacies of humanity's expansion of consciousness. We find an interesting parallel with current events, this from page 179. The wilderness experience, particularly for the West, is the acceptance of a simpler way of life, so that all people everywhere can live. In fact, one of the Christ's main tasks is to release humanity from the glamour of materialism. It is this glamour, this fog of unreality, which prevents man from knowing who he really is, and what the meaning of life really is. The mission undertaken by Maitreya is therefore to encourage cooperation and education for humanity, because when humans are free from the glamours and the fogs of life, we can enjoy a fuller life as co-partners in his work. Maitreya's mission is also our mission. Suffering, Volume 1 reminds us, is the result of the inability of the personality to correctly or fully express the nature of the soul, which is entirely selfless, knowing no sense of separation. Evolution, as it pertains to man, is the process whereby the personality, functioning under the principle of desire, is gradually brought through suffering to renounce the blocks or impediments to the soul's expression on the physical plane. For long-time readers of Maitreya's teachings, these words and many others throughout chapters 4 to 7 of this book are revitalizing. They are also useful when preparing for lectures or public speaking. For new readers, these are simply pearls of a wisdom rooted in the past and distilled into the present. In essence, they are timeless. But Maitreya's Mission Volume 1 is likewise a highly informative book. From details of Maitreya's life in the Asian community of London to the ray relations between nations, or, for example, the subtle but significant difference between self-discipline and punishment, we run the whole gamut of the early and foundational stages of Maitreya's mission. The last 2 chapters are devoted to meditation and service, and include a long sequence of questions and answers about particular aspects of transmission meditation, from the benefits of meditating in a dark room to the right posture to meditate, or the meaning of each stanza in the Great Invocation. Readers may also be interested in connections between meditation and modern psychology. It is never too late to revisit the wisdom of Maitreya's mission, since each rereading is not so much a repetition as a rediscovery, and it is never too early to begin absorbing the wisdom of Maitreya, since this book is lucidly written and its content deftly organized. It is for many an invaluable document of Maitreya's plans for the world, and it is, for most, an intimate call to a meaningful life mission. You're listening to the World Teacher Programme on Wellington's Access Radio 106.1 FM. Benjamin Creme's third book, Maitreya's Mission Volume 2, is the subject of our second book review by Carmen Font, which features in the April 2013 issue of Share International magazine. It's titled Every Cause Has an Effect, and begins, "Many concerned citizens were looking for answers in 1993, amazed at how the world was going through major changes in the political and economic fields. The collapse of the Berlin Wall and the dismembering of former Soviet republics, the end of apartheid, and the beginning of a deep and widespread economic crash that had started earlier in Japan. Maitreya's Mission Volume 2 not only catered for the information needs of readers preoccupied with current affairs, but also provided a framework and a context in which the deeper causes of these events could be clearly understood. If we were to capture the essence of the more than 700 pages of this volume in a single phrase, it could be, every cause has an effect." At a time of hectic news, shortly before the internet and instant communication devices took over the way information was produced and exchanged, readers of Volume 2 could enjoy thorough depictions of the state of the world and our relationship with these events. In this second volume of Maitreya's mission, readers are made witness to the fact that his concerns and priorities are global in scale. The exoteric events making headlines in the news were responding to the new energies of Aquarius and to the plan of evolution. The sense of immediacy and transcendence of these events goes beyond their factual or historical nature and become vivid examples of the underlying purpose of life on planet Earth. The book is divided into 3 main thematic areas. The first part, Maitreya and the Emergence, focuses on the then latest moves towards the externalization of Maitreya and the hierarchy at a time of sincere journalistic activity and media interest. We are reminded of the historic conference held in April 1990, in which, quote, Maitreya had made himself known to a very large group of distinguished people in many countries. They met him in person and received great spiritual experiences. The efforts of the journalists invited to the conference turned out to be relatively ineffective in that they could not communicate these experiences to their editors and news outlets. The reader might feel frustrated at realizing that Maitreya would never impose himself nor infringe our free will, even in those cases where the glaring truth is in front of our eyes. But at the same time, a second and further reading of the developments of Maitreya's emergence in early 1993 give us a sense of the enormous strides that hierarchy was taking towards externalization and their loving trust in humanity. Frustration is not called for as far as the externalization is concerned. If hierarchy were not confident about humanity's ability to carry out changes in the world, Maitreya would not have taken any step towards his external recognition. This involves a change in focus. Instead of grumbling about why the emergence is taking so long, humanity should adopt a stance of proactive and conscious receptivity about the complexity of such an event. That is, we should realize that it is an honor that hierarchy is presenting us with such direct opportunities to acknowledge their presence and confront the changes needed in the world. For those who have read subsequent books by Benjamin Creme and the monthly issues of Share International magazine, or who browse the Share International website, the crescendo of this process of emergence and ever closer contact of Maitreya with humanity is made evident in Part 2 of this book. Press releases and interviews with the Master, pages 30 to 38, On Consensus, Signs and Miracles, page 50, and, very importantly, Maitreya's forecasts about political changes that are responding to a new energy of equilibrium that is pervading the planet, page 89. Almost 20 years have passed since the publication of these forecasts in Volume 2, dealing with the collapse of the economic system based on market forces and commercialization, the new political scenarios in which Asian, Latin American and African countries have more geopolitical and economic weight, and social and scientific developments in the fields of education and the technology of light. With these forecasts, readers can now understand that Maitreya's mission is taking place in good shape and at a rapid pace. It is never fast enough when one is aware of the suffering of millions of people, but we realize that it is indeed surely and consistently taking place when we bear in mind that since 2010, Maitreya has already appeared on dozens of media outlets in America, Mexico, Brazil and Russia, and when we see the recent developments in the Middle East. Volume 2 is a central book in Benjamin Creme's writings, since it marks a turning point towards understanding the actual realization of Maitreya's emergence onto the physical plane as well as its development into future events that bring us close to a new dawn for humanity. Volume 2 holds special significance too, since it gathers together Maitreya's teachings on important matters such as honesty of mind, sincerity of spirit and detachment that have so profoundly influenced our internal discipline towards growing in consciousness. Part 3 follows this trail and devotes itself extensively to all essential matters of discipleship and service. Benjamin Creme's talk on the overcoming of fear is by now a classic reference and a milestone in how to experience the self devoid of the glamour of fear. Quote, "I believe it is possible to overcome fear if we can come into relationship with ourself as the self, and not with that accumulation of experiences that we call me, in which fear is inevitable because it is created by thought." This chapter, as well as chapter 11, Evolution, and chapter 12, Growth of Consciousness, is essential reading for anyone interested in a description and concrete hints about the pitfalls and the dynamics of the evolution of consciousness. Quote, "The quality of your experience of the world depends absolutely on your conscious awareness. Your conscious awareness depends on the quality of the instrument of awareness, your vehicles, physical, emotional, and mental. Thus, the actual practice of honesty of mind, sincerity of spirit, and detachment that Benjamin Creme spells out for us become a guiding force in the path of discipleship. Chapter 13 is devoted to the 7 rays, and has become basic reference reading for anyone interested in studying the qualities of each ray and how these qualities are expressed in individuals according to their point in evolution. The book includes a helpful appendix with a list of initiates and their ray structures, which has subsequently been updated for ease of reference. Benjamin Creme's further insights into transmission meditation in chapter 14 put the emphasis on its service aspect vis-à-vis the development of the disciple. Quote, "The disciple is someone who knows there is a goal and who seeks to further his evolution himself in a highly conscious manner. The goal he seeks is, of course, perfection. Transmission meditation assists us in this goal because it provides a platform for training our focused attention while allowing us to participate in a specific path of service. Even readers who are familiar with the interplay between meditation and service will find great value in revisiting this chapter and its exploration in the requisite mechanisms of self-consciousness. The long series of questions and answers about relationships and the importance of harmlessness broaden the scope and the instruments available towards a greater recognition of ourselves as souls. The last 2 chapters of Maitreya's Mission 2 give continuity to this journey into soul consciousness by highlighting the work ahead for us towards group initiation. Benjamin Creme reminds us that this cannot be imposed as a set of rules or regulations, but rather comes as the result of a loving motivation. Quote, "When the group sees the purpose and goes forward and totally absorbs itself in the purpose, then all these other things, group conflicts, take care of themselves." A wonderful grand finale is the keynote talk, The Call to Service, where Benjamin Creme delves into the significance of right motive and steadfastness as the main enabling forces that sustain a disciple's service and his or her impact on group work and the world at large. There is a very distinct foundational quality in Volume 2 that inspires and delights the reader in every one of its chapters. It is, in a real sense of the word, a central book in the Benjamin Creme bibliography in providing an enormous wealth of relevant information, both historical and educational, that serves the disciple and the casual reader. It sets the tone and pace for a fascinating work in progress into further materializing and participating in Maitreya's mission. That concludes our featured book reviews and our program today. Next month we'll be continuing this theme with Benjamin Creme's book, The Ageless Wisdom Teaching. The share-international.org website describes it as an introduction to that great body of wisdom which substands the spiritual teachings of all groups throughout the ages. Only by discovering the common wellspring from which all their faiths have emerged will men and women truly come to understand their spiritual brotherhood as children of the one Father, by whatever name they call him. So, if you have any questions or would like to know more about the World Teacher Maitreya and the Masters of Wisdom, please visit the website share-international.org, where you'll find more information on the various aspects of the emergence. To inquire about books by Benjamin Creme, including a free copy of The Ageless Wisdom Teaching, or our monthly free-of-charge newsletter, which contains extracts from previous Share International magazines, the number is 027 426 2018. That number again is 027 426 2018. Thank you for listening to us on Wellington's Access Radio 106.1 FM. And please tune in to our next World Teacher programme on Saturday the 11th of April at the usual time of 10 a.m. You can listen again to this programme and previous ones by visiting share-international-nz.info and click on the radio tab.